Look, you have been very busy. It seems you have gathered together all of the stars of the medical freedom movement, half the specky writers, and a whole stack of new talent, and collected them into this exciting event that's happening this weekend. Tell us, what have you been up to?
Yeah, so this is a very, very busy day for me because it's the day before the inaugural Conference of Australians for Science and Freedom, which is a new think tank, free think tank, we like to call it, that myself and a bunch of like-minded colleagues from across the professions and across the country founded a few months ago. And we have a website, scienceandfreedom.org, and we are putting on this conference basically to introduce our organization to the resistance and restoration community as a place that can be a kind of umbrella home for the various different amazing people we have in both the grassroots community and in the sort of public intellectual community, the eggheads, and the real coalface workers. So we've got a program for basically 2 days plus a welcome reception on Friday, where we've got something like 42 different speakers, more than 120 people coming at some point. And they include speakers who are in different professions, so not just economists by any means. It's media people, including yourself, health professionals, people who are in the legal area, people thinking about political economy, people thinking about education. And everybody's focus is going to be on what do we need to do to reform institutions, protocols, systems in the West, and particularly in Australia, in order to promote and restore really a healthier society. So all of these areas we know have had crumbling ethical foundations for a while now. There's ethical problems and just failures and inefficiencies across science and health and education and the media. And we want to think productively about what we can do, not just sort of berate everybody who was in charge during the COVID era, which is easy to do, and not just wait around until maybe somebody does a COVID inquiry that brings people to justice, but actually draw up some blueprints for the future.
Well, science and freedom is an interesting concept. Knowledge of the unknown is a type of power, and power is a lucrative tool for those who wish to control society. And yes, I'll be discussing that in my talk. But in the old world, it was chiefly the religious groups who sought to control the power of science, be that the tribal witches or the medicine men, the oracles, the practitioners, all the so-called dark arts. Eventually, it was the church, and in particular Rome, that tried to constrain and own science, creating it to serve various political ambitions of all the kings and princes that were running around. But it took science a really long time to escape this system. But now, Gigi, it's the politicians and the billion-dollar corporations that want to own science. And they are trapped in this desire to possess a kind of divine truth to make money and basically win government. Now, are you worried about the current state of science? Because it does seem to have been recaptured by these influences.
Yeah, look, I mean, as I said, I think science is one of the areas that has been corrupted thoroughly during this era. But science as a concept is inherently free. I mean, anyone can be a scientist, right? It's not the province of some privileged elite. If you have a brain and you can observe with your senses, you can start being a scientist, because being a scientist simply means trying to understand your world in some way, develop hypotheses about it, and then test those hypotheses, see if you're right. And if not, change your theory and retest and keep going until you get to what you think, for that moment at least, is your best guess at truth. You're never arriving at truth in science, but you have a process, a scientific process that is accessible to you. It's inherently a democratic concept, science. So when we have seen during COVID, for example, the sort of capture of science by these powerful institutions, as you say, what's really going on there is a mistaking of science for religion. The COVID cult was a religion. The climate change cult is a religion as well. And we are told to make sacrifices today for some promised future reward. That's a kind of classic playbook of a religious authority. That was the case in COVID. That's the case in climate change. It's the case in a lot of other kind of modern cultural tropes, the gender ideology wars, for example, and clean energy stuff. I mean, there's a lot of religiosity that's permeating these discussions that really should be scientific. They should be about trying to understand our world so that we can make better policy to help everybody in the country do better and help the country as a whole grow and prosper and be competitive on the world stage and deliver well-being for all of our people. That is what we should be about in policy, and we should be holding our politicians and other authority figures to account when they try to hijack science for their own ends and use religious means to do it. So I absolutely think that science needs to be rescued, but we have to be the ones to do it. Nobody's going to be coming in on a white horse, right? We have to do this from the ground